Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Swing Good Torah. We learned something very interesting in Parsha Bereshis or Genesis, the very beginning of the Torah. And we see that Hashem, God, he commands Adam with seven mitzvahs. These are generally referred to as the seven mitzvahs of the children of Noah, or the Shiva mitzvos b'nei Noach. And we're going to see where it actually comes from. We're going to see the verse in the Torah where it comes from, and then we'll see the Zohar, how it tells us how we learn out the mitzvahs, and then it's also in the Gemara in Sanhedrin that tells us how to learn it out, and the Tosefta. Here, let me bring it up on the screen here, and we will take a look. So we'll actually read the two Pesukim, the two verses. So it's in Bereshis, Genesis, and it's chapter 2, and it's verses 16 to 17. And it says, Vayitzav Hashem Elokim al ha'adam lemor mikol eitz hagan achol tochel. And Hashem Elokim, he commanded Adam, he commanded the man, and he said, of every tree of the garden you are able to eat. And then it goes on, it says, Ume eitz hadas tovara lo sochal. But from the tree of knowledge of good and evil you will not eat from it, mimenu, ki b'yom achalcha mimenu mos tamus. And because on the day that you eat of it, you will die. All right, so we're going to go down to the Zohar here, and we're going to see where we learn out these seven mitzvahs. So it's very interesting. So the Zohar tells us, this is in the Zohar on Bereshis, on Genesis. It's page 35b if you want to look it up. And what it's going to do is it's going to do a drash. It's going to expound the halakha, the mitzvahs out of the verse. So where we see here, so what the Zohar tells us, when it says vayatzav, and it says, and Hashem commanded, this is teaching us that there's a mitzvah not to worship idols. So it's a mitzvah against avodah zarah, and we learn it out from, and he commanded. Then next, the name Hashem, this is teaching us the mitzvah of a person should not curse the name of Hashem, and you should not, blasphemy against Hashem. And then the word Elohim, the name of Hashem Elohim, this teaches us, because this Elohim is sometimes used in the Torah to refer to judges. Sometimes it refers to malachim, to angels. But here it's telling us the mitzvah that all the nations of the world, they should appoint judges in some kind of judicial system. Every country needs to have laws and then enforce those laws. And this is the mitzvah teaching that. So then it says that it's al ha'adam, and this is teaching us that a person, no one is allowed to murder. There's the mitzvah not to kill. It's called a shafichus damim, not to spill blood. And we learned it out from the word adam, man. So then lemor, in the verse where it says saying, so this is teaching us there is a mitzvah against giloy arayos. This is adultery. This is any kind of physical immorality. And it's interesting because the word lemor, so here I would think that usually how do these things come about, through words, through seduction. And it's interesting that it uses that word there to darshan it, to derive it. Then mikol eitz hagan, from all the trees of the garden you can eat. But this is interesting. This is telling us there's a mitzvah that you can't steal. So Hashem permitted, like, to eat from all the trees, but there's things that not permitted to you or not yours, and it's the mitzvah not to steal. Then achol tochel, you will eat. This teaches us not to, the mitzvah of not to eat a limb from a living animal. And it's a very cruel thing. There's a concept in the Torah, tsar balei chayim. We don't try to do anything that will cause animals pain. So one of the big things that the Torah teaches us is be more merciful, compassionate, have rachamim. So we'll just take a look here where it's usually derived. And it's just interesting that I found it in the Zohar over Shabbos. But here it's like the seven laws of Noach, the Shiva b'nei Noach. And we can learn it out in the Babylonian Talmud, in Sanhedrin. It's on page 56, A to B, if you want to look it up. And then it's also in the Tosefta. The Tosefta is a collection of baraisas. So this is part of the oral law. These are collections of the rabbi's notes, the Tanaim. And the ones that were not made into a Mishnah, they're collected in things called a baraisa, and they're collected in the Tosefta. And this is on the Masechta, the Gemara, the Talmud of Avodah Zarah, and it's 9:4, probably chapter 9, um, Brisa 4. And these are the following. So once again, it's not to worship idols, not to curse God, not to commit murder, not to commit adultery or any kind of physical immorality, not to steal, not to eat flesh torn from a living animal, and to establish a court of justice. So according to the Talmud, the seven Noahide laws were first given to Adam and then to Noah. And then the Tanaim, so these were the rabbis that created the Mishnahs. And the Amoraim, these were the rabbis that explained the Mishnah and created the Gemara. And then if you put the Mishnahs and the Gemara together, you have what's called the Talmud. And they lived in the first to sixth century. But they disagreed on the exact number of Noahide laws. I've seen some Gemara where it says like the original account was 30 laws, but now it's accepted right now that it's seven laws. And then there's an interesting discussion, and it'll be an interesting discussion for another video of how extensive are these laws. Like in the just do they pick up other mitzvahs of the Torah in these main categories of the seven mitzvahs. But these are the seven mitzvahs, and if anyone in the world from any nation, if he takes upon himself or herself, they're considered the Siddiqim of the Ummos. They are the righteous of the nations, and they have a place in Olam Haba, in the world to come. Okay, thank you for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah.